Everybody ready? We will start this meeting at 6:30 p.m., 6:31 p.m. actually, on June 7th. If we could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Crosby will leading us to the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please put your right hand over your heart. Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Crosby. Roll call, Mr. Rossi.
Councilmember Lau.
Present.
Councilmember Crosby.
Here.
Councilmember Carter.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis.
Here.
Mayor Hepburn.
Here. Do we have any announcements of upcoming community events? Anything to that effect, Mr. Rossi or JR, that you're aware of?
I'm not aware. JR.
Unreceived, sir.
Then we will move to consent calendar. Has anything been pulled from the consent calendar, Mr. Rossi?
I am not aware of anything, nothing from council. And I don't know that we've had any requests to have anything removed.
Okay, then we will need any questions from council? Mr. Davis, we'll go for a
No questions. I'm ready to move that we approve the consent calendar.
motion is taken. We need a second.
I'll second it.
Councilmember Carter, then we move to a roll call vote, Mr. Rossi.
Yes. Back to that page. You guys move quickly for me. Councilmember Lau.
Aye.
Councilmember Crosby.
Yes.
Councilmember Carter.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis.
Aye.
Mayor Hepburn.
Yes.
Okay.
That was easy.
Yeah.
We will move to item number 6, public hearing, correct?
Yes, this is a public hearing. It's your annual public hearing, protest hearing for your Old Town Laverne Business District assessment. We also incorporated an annual report from the chair, who I'm not seeing that he is on there yet. Eric, is he coming?
He's supposed to be. JR said he is not logged in yet, though. So
Okay,
I'll start it off. I can handle it if he's unable to join.
very good. Go right ahead.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor and council members. This is the annual protest hearing for the Old Town Laverne Business Improvement District. Hopefully if Craig can join us, he'll give you an update of what's occurred in last year and what's planned for next year. And then I'll talk about the budget. But this is a public hearing where you would open the public hearing, take any protests or public comments regarding the district itself. And then adopting resolution number 2129, approving the budget, approving the annual report, and reestablishing the district boundaries and assessment formulas.
Mr. Chair, Craig is in the attendees and has his hand up.
Okay, so I'll let JR bring him in. And
Oh, I just saw it. Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Crosby. I didn't see it until now. Mr. Walters, good evening. You're welcome to speak if you want to unmute.
There we go.
Good evening, sir.
Sorry about that. I was raising my hand because I heard Eric asking if I was here. So I would defer back to him to finish his report.
actually, I was ready to turn it over to you. So if you go ahead, I'll follow up with the budget after you're done.
Who's on first? Here we go.
Right ahead.
Well, coincidentally, we had a Old Town board meeting this morning, and had a chance to discuss again some of the issues that we've been dealing with for the past year. Overall, I would say that whereas last year it was all new and kind of a shock, this past year has been more of a, okay, we know what to do. We've got to basically just wait things out. What I can tell you, and many of you who shop and dine in Old Town would probably already know this, is that the businesses in Old Town remain healthy. Many of the restaurants have actually, even under reduced seating restrictions, have had some of their best gross receipts ever. And so people are anxious to get out to dine, to go walk around. The closure of D Street has been a major asset for those, in particular, the restaurants on D Street. It's really changed the atmosphere downtown during this time that people can get out and wander around. I'd say without question, from what I see, there are more people walking around Old Town, especially Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Yesterday morning, it was packed with people downtown. So there have been some positive things that have come of this, but obviously things will need to return to normal at some point. We will be discussing at our next meeting a lot of this still is contingent on what the county does in following state guidelines after June 15th. But we intend to discuss a return to a beer/wine walk, potentially as early as this fall. Many of the other activities that we have not been able to do the last 2 years will be returning. The Cool Cruise, normally, which happens around Easter time, is slated to return on 9/11 this year, a significant date. And I think that has the potential of being a real good thing for Old Town. Obviously, from what we're hearing, 4th of July activities, which also include Old Town. And the one question that many people have is concerning D Street. At the meeting we had last month, the consensus was that even though there's definitely support to keep the street closed, the current situation is not tenable on a permanent basis. So what we suggested at that time is to find a compromise where we would request that the city council keep the street in the current situation until early to mid-August, at which time it would be reopened prior to the University of Laverne resuming classes to free up parking spaces. There's also, coincidentally, we heard this morning from Eric that the Gold Line plans to close D Street sometime in the next, I believe that's around the 1st of August is what we heard. So it would probably make sense to open D Street, the closed block, to coincide with that as well. So we would, and we basically this morning concurred with the feeling from a month ago that it's a good thing right now. We'd like to see the restaurants try to recover some of their losses early in the pandemic, but prior to the university reopening, we'd like to see the street reopen as well. And if I could, Mr. Mayor, one last thing.
Please.
Through this whole time, and you hear this all the time, it's all about how people work together. And, from my experience, many years working with this district, we've always had the support of the city, but this past year and a half has been really exceptional. The Community Development Department under Eric's guidance has been extremely supportive. Their staff, and particularly Natalie, very supportive of our endeavors, and the entire city council and staff on the administrative level, City Manager Russi. We couldn't ask for a more supportive government behind us, and we're just glad to have good partners in leadership. So thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Craig.
Here.
Yes. So just briefly on their budget, on the district's budget for this year, we did go into this conservatively, and as Craig mentioned, we are talking now about being able to start to think about having events this year, which is a great news. However, this budget doesn't fully reflect that at this time. So we, as staff, definitely expect to be coming back to the council later in the year once those dates are established and we have a good grip on how those events might occur and what those budget projections would be to, obviously increase expenditures. But the beer walk and the wine walk specifically were major revenue sources for the district. And so obviously in the last year and a half, they haven't had those revenues come in. So they have pulled from the reserves last year. The way we budgeted for this next year, they would also be going into the reserves. However, if a beer walk in the fall and a full wine walk in the spring are able to occur, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think they'd be able to be in the green again and actually see more revenues and expenditures. It just depends on the nature of those events. So I will point out also in this year, last year when we went into the budget, since we didn't know what the status of COVID was and how it might impact the events, we kept that budget status quo. So obviously they fell well short of the revenues and expenditures projected out of last year's budget. But one of the things that we didn't do is 2 of the capital improvement programs that are outlined in the budget is the Monero Square remodel, if you will, which would add a permanent stage to that location, as well as other improvements. That was delayed, not necessarily due to COVID, but because we were waiting for a potential cell tower to go there. That looks like it's no longer going forward. So we have been moving forward with getting plans developed so we can go out to bid. So that project will occur in the next fiscal year. So that wasn't expended out of last year. And similarly, the phase 2 of the tree lights, if you recall, a couple of years ago, we redid the tree lights. They still look great down there. And the plan is to extend those out to more trees that previously weren't lit. And so that wasn't obviously a priority under the last year and a half, but it is in the capital improvement plan. And so we expect those 2 expenditures, roughly $40,000 to be expended this current year. But the good news is they're expected to have 120,000 in reserves as of July 1st. So there is that money there. The board has fully recommended that the council approve this budget as drafted. With that, before I turn over to you, Mr. Mayor, to open a public comment, I did want to point out, I think this is a testament to Craig's dedication to the city and the Old Town. I realized when drafting the report earlier under consent, the council reappointed 3 members, including Mr. Chair Walters. This is Craig's 25th year of service to the district. And so I think that's to be applauded for sure.
And Mr. Walters is only 37. You look great, Mr. Walters. I'll tell you, that's wonderful.
It's 36, Tim.
I'm sorry, I messed up. That Mr. Russi, you didn't give me the right information.
Hey, Craig, I remember you when you were a young man.
Hey, we're all young, every one of us. I don't want to hear it. Thank you, Mr. Scheer. Does you have any questions for staff, Mr. Scheer or Mr. Walters, before we go to public comment? I think we'll go to public comment.
Don't expect 25 more.
Yeah, there you go. We'll go to public comment. Do we have anybody in for public comment, JR?
Mr. Mayor, we didn't have any requests via email to speak on the phone for this item, but if there's any attendees that are participating that wish to raise their hand, they could do so now.
I only see us on here.
If you click on the attendees, you'll see them. There's a panelist button and an attendee button above the list of names.
Mr. Mayor, if you hit the screen,
I got it. Sorry. I've got it. I learned every single day. Okay, we've got people, but I see no hands raised. So if that be the case, we have no call-ins. Is that correct, Chair?
Correct, sir.
We'll go ahead and close the public comment and we'll move back to council. Do we have any more questions for Director Scheer or Mr. Walters, or comments from anyone? That doesn't look. Mr. Davis?
I'm ready to make a motion.
I just have, let me quick, I just want to personally thank Director Scheer, but also Mr. Walters, because I've been on a number of these meetings and it's a really gelled group together. And there was a lot of serious discussions because this was life or death for some of these businesses. And I'll tell you, talk about resiliency once we close those streets down. And there are a few things going on right now. You've got Assembly Bill 61, which is sponsored at Gabriel. And then we've got SB 314, which is Wiener, which has to do with the ABC laws and outside dining and carry alcohol. And our governor right now is kind of extending things to the end of 2021 as far as carrying the alcohol and just, you know, as far as dining and outside dining. So they're very aware that this really affected the businesses, and hopefully this will extend some things out. Now, these are still, they've gone through a couple of the motions for these bills already they've gone through and passed quite unanimously, but they have a few more steps. But understanding that this outside dining is here to stay, and I hope to see maybe some modifications of that as far as some of our businesses, because people love this, and they love it in all the communities. I was still in the COG, and I'll tell you what, Pasadena, Rosemead, Monrovia, El Monte, South El Monte, they love it. So, but anyway, thank you very much, Mr. Walters. Thank you, Mr. Shear. Do we have a motion?
Yes, Mayor, I would like to move that this gem of Laverne that is a model for every community, or should be a model for every community, that the city council receive and file the report of the OTLV bid, prior year activities, and approve the proposed Divid 2021-2022 annual budget, and approve reestablishment of the district boundaries and assessment formula.
And adopt resolution 21-29, sir.
Oh, yes, thank you. I had to turn the page.
Do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Thank you, Councilmember Lau. Roll call, please, Mr. Russi.
Councilmember Lau,
Aye.
Councilmember Crosby,
Yes.
Councilmember Carter,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis,
Aye.
Mayor Hepburn.
Oh, I don't know about the renewal of people on. Yeah, resoundingly, absolutely, yes. What a great job. Yes. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Sheriff. Thank you, Mr. Walters.
Thank you.
We move to other matters. Mr. Russi.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, on this item, since it does involve a discussion regarding terms of my employment, I am going to head and excuse myself. The city attorney will handle the item, and then I will be brought back in after it has been concluded. So with that.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Kress, when he's not done yet.
All right. This matter comes forward as an issue that was brought to the attention of our newest council members, Crosby and Lau, about this provision in the Laverne Municipal Code, which says that the city manager should be a resident of the city of Laverne, or within 12 months of appointment, the council should require, or it has to be either a resident of Laverne or live within 5 miles. So, you know, this issue is kind of brought forward at this point. The incumbent city manager, throughout his employment, has been very close to 5 miles, not within the exactitude of 5 miles, but at several times between 5.5 and 6.5, I believe, are the numbers. So, you know, it's not a requirement of the municipal code that the manager be within those limits. It directs the council to require that. The council never has required that. There was never, to my recollection, which I think is pretty good on this subject, any formal action. I think previous city councils have observed the proximity of where the city manager actually lives, his responsiveness, and decided, again, without any formal action, that it was close enough. So that's kind of the state of where we are tonight, and I'll let the two council members speak further.
Councilmember Crosby, Councilmember Lau, looks like Mr. Crosby's ready. Please proceed.
Thank you. Yeah, Municipal Code 2.04.0220 states actually that shall require the city manager live within 5 miles. Now, I understand that Mr. Russi lives not very far outside that range, 6 to 7 miles. But the city council, the municipal code does state that. So we're putting this up today so that we give notice for him to comply within 12 months. But I want to also look at this municipal code too, because in the past 3 years we have had even our safety personnel be allowed to live farther than 75 miles away from the city. We've moved that in the last, I think it was 3 years ago. And the government code of 50083, the state of California government code says no local agency or district shall require that its employees be residents of such a local agency or district. And I would like to look at other cities around and find out what their codes are on the city manager and the residency of that. I've researched about 5 or 6 in the area, and they do not have even a mileage on there. But right now, our municipal code says that. And so I believe that we have to give notice to our city manager based on our municipal code, because it's just like contracts. If we don't want to follow one part of our contract, then what other parts we don't follow? With our codes, we follow all of our codes as well. And if we want to look at that and make changes, then we, as a council, can do that as well. But we need to do that in this time frame. And looking at the government code and our city code, there is some conflicting language from our state to what our city is as well. So I'm proposing and requesting that we give notice to the city manager, but in that time also look at our surrounding areas, look at our own municipal code, and look at the government code as well.
Thank you, Mr. Crosby. Councilmember Lau.
So just to further elucidate that point, this is really about following the process and the way that it's written now. In order to be in compliance, we do need to go through the steps that have been lined out by Mr. Crosby. I also think it's important to note for folks that aren't aware, and I will welcome Mr. Kress to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the municipal code is dated from 85 and the government code changes are much more recent than 85. I believe I was, 10 or 9 at the time. So it gives you some, some context in which why we need to look further into this. I'm also looking at the perpetuity of the city in terms of marketability of future city managers, because, let's be real, we all have to look forward in terms of, who's going to be in our seats next, who's going to be sitting in Mr. Russi's seat next, and looking at the way the job market is it really feasible to expect that, our next city manager will be someone who lives within the city limits? And I think that's why it's also very important to look at what are other cities doing, because if other cities are casting a wider net in order to find the best candidate for, their next city manager, we're really bootstrapping ourselves in a position where we may not have the pool of candidates that we may desire. And I think, given the housing conditions in Southern California as well, I don't know that it's as easy to believe that someone is going to be, maybe as mobile in terms of moving. So I think these are all things that we need to be cognizant of, and why we need to research, whether or not that municipal code should stand. Again, noting that it is a 1985 provision that has not been updated and does not seem to be aligned with the current government code. However, we are dealt the hands we are dealt, and that's, what we need to proceed with in order to be in compliance.
And one thing more to add, Councilmember Lau, that this is on no bearing of Mr. Russi's job skills and what he has done, especially during this pandemic time. He has responded every time to anything in the city and has been in the city even during the pandemic and running things from his office. So it is not about his job performance or what he has done for the city. Things have changed a lot since the 80s, cell phones, connectivity, and things like that as well. But it is part of our municipal code, and that is why we bring it up today.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Carter, you want to speak on this?
Yes, Wendy and Rick. Now, are you going to take the initiative with this to make sure personnel or whomever you want to do the research starts on this soon and follows through with it within the 12-month period?
Yes,
That's
and
what we're asking tonight.
yes, and that direction should be directed to legal.
Okay.
Okay, Councilmember Davis.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to get a sense from Mr. Kress how quickly this analysis could take place, largely because, I mean, I'm not opposed to making this requirement without prejudice, but I'd like it to be able to be rescindable, because causing someone to make transactions on real estate in California is not an inexpensive effort. And I think we should really look at this seriously with regard to what limit, if any, do we want to put on in order to maintain our financial prudency. So how quickly, Mr. Russi, do you think this review
Mr.
could
Kress.
be done? I'm sorry, Mr. Kress. My bad. I should just say, what about Bob? Bob, what
There
is?
you go. Very quickly, I mean, we can, give you legal options and, it's not going to take time at all.
Okay, as long as it's not going to, I mean, writing an ordinance is one thing, but modifying a municipal code might be another. So I just want to make sure we can do this in a manner that we aren't in the 13th month or the 11th month where transactions would start to happen.
No, I mean, if the council collectively takes a look at this provision and says, hey, the pandemic has taught us a whole lot about what you can do remotely and, in Southern California, with everything that's going on and housing prices and so forth, does 5 miles make any sense anymore? It may not. Now, a wider radius, and the government code says you can't require residency within the jurisdiction. Radius bands are allowable, but you may want to take a look at where we are at this day and age and whether or not that provision, which was actually enacted right after the government code said you can't require residency. But we can analyze all those issues and get back to you quickly. And if you decide that you want to amend or get rid of that particular requirement, it's a couple of months.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Well, thank you, both you council members, for bringing this up. I think not just this item, but I think the municipal code obviously needs to be reviewed from time to time. And I think it's, as you said, 85 was quite a few years ago, but a lot of things in Laverne have stayed fairly much the same to a good note. So, but I think that like any other law or municipal code should be reviewed to make sure that it sets the present state of affairs. So if that's what the council wants to do. We do have a hand raised out there. Does anybody else have any questions or more comments on this?
Well, I'll reserve my comments for after public comment.
Okay, then we'll close this. We'll move to public comment. We have Tracy Gonzalez that's raising her hand. JR?
And Mr. Mayor, if I could interject and ask that we go to somebody that's been waiting patiently on the phone.
Oh, that's fine. I'm sorry. Let's go to the phone conversation, then we'll go to the raised hands. Sure, please bring them on.
Mr. Mayor, I have Zach Gibson on the line.
Mr. Gibson, good evening. If we could try to keep it to a 3-minute time frame, we'd appreciate it, sir. But you may begin at any time.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. I was just wondering because it is the municipal code and it says that the city council shall require. And even though it wasn't pressured, the language does suggest, even if it's from 1987, that saying shall, that is contractually bound to. If I'm incorrect, Wendy or Chris, you might be able to correct me on that. So I'm wondering why, knowing this, then if he was appointed in August 2010, then from August 2011, he should have been living within 5 miles because that was the code. And since it is contractual and nobody was enforcing this, I'm wondering if there's going to be a violation of the code, and because it has been violated, and if they're going to do punishment on that, or if you guys are just going to, what I assume, just let this slide, even if you guys end up changing it in the end. I will like to add that he's had almost 130 months to find a residency, either within the city or within that 5-mile radius, and must not be lucky. God help him if he was. But I don't know, a whole other year to figure it out. That seems like a long time, guys. And I understand the state of the current housing market, but that is a lot of time to grant. And if I may, last thing, if I may suggest renting out one of the many Airbnbs offered in our city until he finds a suitable home or residence. Unfortunately, though, they are only short-term rentals, but there is a lovely 1885 2-bedroom cottage in Old Town Laverne that is an absolute gem. It's owned by Dynamite Superhost Linda Wilkinson, who is more than accommodating, or he can find a place and rent month to month, whichever he chooses. He can certainly afford either option on the salary he gets paid. But in all seriousness, I'm wondering if he's going to get it's a misdemeanor or at least an infraction if there's an ordinance saying otherwise. I'm wondering if you're going to push that against him because he did break the municipal code and it is contractually binding. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. JR?
I'm going to go ahead and bring in Mr. Bowen. Looks like he has his hand raised. Ms. Gonzalez no longer does.
Yes, I did see Mr. Bowens. Yes.
Pardon me, I thought there was somebody ahead of me. But number one, I want to appreciate, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Bowen.
I appreciate the new council people, Lau and Crosby, for bringing this to the attention because it has come up before. And in fact, Robin Carter has said many times that Mr. Russi was in compliance. He lived within the 5-mile radius. So this is not a new subject, and either she lied or else she was misinformed. But it's still a municipal code. I find it interesting that you seem to want to pick and choose. You just renewed a bunch of contracts, 5 of which go back over 20 years. And you use that reasoning to not put them out to bid. So you embrace longevity when it works. But in this case, this is a municipal code, a law as far as I'm concerned, and it's okay not to adhere to it. I find it fascinating when Mr. Russey's been on this job for, I don't know, what, 8, 10 years? And as the previous caller just said, you've had 120, 130 months to have our city manager comply with our law. That is amazing. I also find it interesting that the city attorney just used the term never had a quote formal action. I guess that's what's going to take from now on for the city to follow its own codes. 2 years ago, it was brought up that the purchasing codes were not being met. And what happened? Muir Davis moved to change the purchasing codes. And tonight you just rebid 25 contracts. Again, pick and choose. And my last comment is that when Mr. Kress, who has now been renewed for a 30-year agreement with the city, is a lawyer, I presume, at least I shouldn't say that. He's a lawyer, and he used the word close enough. That 6 to 7 miles is close enough. And I would love to know, is that a legal term? Because I've never heard that used, that he's close enough, or that's close enough to the law to actually be within the law. So this really is amazing to me. And I hope that Councilperson Lau and Crosby and all of you say the law comes first. Otherwise, what good is it? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. JR,
Any more callers? Yeah.
just a minute, check. I don't see any hands up. JR, we have any phone calls?
Mr. Mayor, I just refreshed and didn't see any.
Okay, we'll give it about 15 seconds and then we'll close.
Still nothing, sir.
We'll go ahead and close public comment, bring it back to council for discussion. Councilman Ricardo.
Tim, I'd like to explain something that I think Bob Kress forgot to mention very clearly. I came on the city council in 2009 under a different city manager. Bob Russey came on, lived within the 5-mile status of the contract. I don't like being called a liar because I don't lie, but I want to make it very clear, he still owns the home 5 miles away. Just recently, he now lives in another home 6 miles away. So that is just recent. So I applaud Wendy and Rick noticing this, or if someone brought it to your attention, so be it. But yes, I'm sorry, I agree with Bob Kress. It's a 1 mile difference. It's, I've heard it's 6 miles away, but that is just recent. So I want to make that very clear. It doesn't go back from the time he got his contract. So please make note of that.
Thank you, Councilman Ricardo. Councilmember Davis, you had a comment or more comments? No? Being that said, I do appreciate our 2 council members for bringing that up. I think we do, as we all need to follow the municipal code. And if it is not something that is that doesn't apply anymore, then we do need to change those. And again, we do need to be cautious about that. But again, different time, different place. So being that said, I think that do we need to make a motion, Mr. Kress, on this?
Yes.
Then I would require a motion for this to proceed. As who would like to make the motion? Mr. Crosby?
I like to make the motion that the city manager be given 12 months notice to comply with Laverne Municipal Code Section 2.04.020 and request that this compliance period the requirement be reviewed.
I'll second it.
All those in favor? Oh, we have to do a roll call. I'm sorry.
If,
Roll call.
if I can make a slight amendment to it, even though it's been seconded, I would like to insert the words after requiring notice to comply with municipal code, say, actually, I guess it's within the 5 miles of radius city hall. Before we get into, we're going to study it, say, with the possibility of rescinding such request.
Or is that Councilmember Lau? You've got that
I will-
look on your face.
I will second it as revised.
We're good with that? Then we just do one roll call on the whole thing, Mr. Kress? Do we have a
Okay, I'll do the roll call. I'm just going to do it by who I see first.
That's fine.
Mayor Pro Tem Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Carter,
Yes.
Councilmember Lau,
Aye.
Councilmember Crosby,
Yes.
Mayor Hepburn.
Yes,
Thank you.
motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Kress. We will bring Mr. Russi back in, I think. Is that correct? There he is. He's got his fingers working. There you go.
Turn the volume back up.
Okay. Well, we came out of that. We're gonna move now. We're gonna move on. Do we need to discuss this or we just move on to the next item? We'll move to public comments and oral communications. Mr. JR. Here we go. We have, I just saw it. What happened?
You brought him in.
Oh, you brought him in? Oh, I see right there. Learning every day. Mr. Wilson.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. What I want to talk about is the horrendous thing that I saw on Facebook regarding our not opening Station 3 due to the 4 members of City Council deciding they didn't want to do that. And not too long after that, I see that a firefighter, I believe firefighter paramedic, who was still on probation has left for another opportunity, as well as another person left for another opportunity, and then a third member has retired. Councilmember Lau, you said during your campaign, when you were directly asked what were you going to do about this situation, was it was time to move on and have the fire department gain interest or gain respect and the support of the city council. And then I come to find out that basically now you have, all of you have a vote, 4 of you have a vote of no confidence from the fire department. That's crazy. Last month, I was complaining about the parade of interim fire chiefs we had, and Robin Carter, Councilmember Carter, said, Mr. Wilson, you just wait a few weeks and you'll see how things will go. Well, Councilmember Carter, I see how things went. You're still causing more problems with the fire department. This is getting to be ridiculous. It's absolutely out of control. Where's the LV money if you're concerned about money? What the hell is going on with our city council and our fire department, who has been around here for 100 years and done so many great things for our city? I do not want to see us go to county. And to be honest with you, I think that's what Ms. Carter was trying to tell me a month ago. I think that's where you guys are headed. I don't appreciate it. And I don't appreciate the atmosphere that you guys created with our fire department. I know you saw what was going on in front of City Hall. I know you've seen the Facebook posts, and I'm extremely, extremely disappointed in what you've done to create the situation once again, especially you, Ms. Carter. I was hoping to hear something new from you. I don't think I can believe anything you ever say. I am really tired of this. I think a lot of the members of our city are tired of it. Councilmember Lau, I supported you when you ran. Don't give me a reason not to support you the next time. Thank you for letting me have some time.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
And while we maybe wait for some hands raised, I do have a phone call, if that's okay, Mr. Mayor.
Please bring the person on.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have Kathy Newland on the line.
Good evening, Kathy Newland. How are you this
Hi,
evening? And
Mr. Mayor and Council.
if we could keep to 3 minutes, Kathy.
But
Kathy
I
Newland?
wanted to first.
Kathy, hold on. Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
No, I just want to make sure, Kathy, we could try to keep it to 3 minutes. We'd appreciate it. But thank you for coming on.
Okay. Okay, I have one question, but before that, since I couldn't talk on the previous subject, I just wanted to correct Robin that Bob Russi has not lived within 5 miles of the city. Never. The house before that he owned was probably 7 miles. Now he's 8.5 miles from downtown, from City Hall. And as far as the first responders, they would differ because they're on a shift. So they wouldn't have to live where they work. So anyway, that was my comment on that. My question tonight is I'm calling because I asked the question last city council meeting and I asked, it was not answered. I would like to get an answer tonight. I want to have you put Chief Waterhouse on the phone to answer my question tonight. Chief Waterhouse, do you support Mayor Hepburn's proposal about the LVFD and why? So I would like that answer tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Newland. GR, do we have a phone-in conversation?
Mr. Mayor, we do have several phone calls, so Loopy's getting those ready, and then I will let you know when we have them in the queue.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have Kathy Kalusik on the line.
Good evening, Ms. Kalusek. If you could please keep to a 3-minute time frame, we'd greatly appreciate it. You may begin.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This is Kathy Kalusek, 2242 3rd Street, 54-year resident. I want to start off by saying that I appreciate our mayor and city council members. I'm sure that when you all ran for your positions, you had no idea that on top of everything else you have to do for us, you'd also be dealing with a pandemic. I want to thank all of you and let you know that your well-being and sanity is often in my nightly prayers. 3 weeks ago, the mayor presented what he said was a plan to save our fire department. This opened up dialogue, which is good. Unfortunately for me, it was more of a proposal than a plan, and I needed more information than what was presented. The other council members and the city manager also weren't able to support it as presented and have really been vilified, both on the Firefighters Association's Facebook page and in the Nextdoor app. This ire isn't warranted and it isn't productive to fixing our issues. The city has already been trying to fill 2 positions with no success. It's my belief that we need to have a permanent chief, a sustainable source of revenue, and a plan for hiring and maintaining good candidates. This will show we're a stable city with a bright future. This is going to take money and cooperation from all involved. Regarding money, I started to do some research into how to get some more. I came across some grants that FEMA is offering. One is called SAFER, which stands for Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response. This sounds like what we need. I reached out to the contact person that was on the website last week, and she emailed me the point of contact for this program. I have sent her an email and will continue to follow up until I get more info. The 2021 grants are not available yet, and I've asked when they will be and what we need to do to prepare. Once I have more info, I will forward to city management and the city council. It's time that we move forward and work together to find solutions to our problems. I want to keep our fire department, and I'm happy to volunteer my time to help in any way that I can do that. Let's talk. Thank you.
Muted. Thank you. JR, we have more?
Yes, sir. One moment, please. Mr. Mayor, I have Zach Gibson on the line.
Mr. Gibson, good evening again. If we could try to keep to a 3-minute time frame, we'd appreciate it. You may begin anytime.
Copy that. Here we go. All right, Mr. Crosby, you read from the report last meeting, quote, a comprehensive plan should be developed to address the current challenges to include hiring a fire chief with the appropriate skill set and supporting the chief's efforts over the long term, close quote. And then you also commented on the report that it was reported that a comprehensive review is contained in an SOC/CRA, which comes with associated costs based on level of details of Verne. If that's what you think should happen, which is what you stated last week, where have your calls been for that for the past 9 months since you guys were given this information? You said, quote, prior to its closure, Station 3 only had 3 to 5 calls a week. That's not a day, that is a week, which is an interesting statement when talking about safety, because each one of those 5 calls could be for saving a life. And because of that, I'm wondering if you then would also believe the fire or the police department should stop patrolling the area with a fire station 3 operator due to them having the same amount of 911 calls in that area last year. That's around 2 to 5 a week, not a day, 2 to 5 a week. Now, Robin, you said, quote, we as the council really didn't get much information on this. And I think it was just put together and not discussed to the point where we have the information all of it. Now, if you felt that way, why didn't you speak up and ask for more information or explanation? Why be content with not fully understanding the vital report to our safety? You said regarding the fire department, we ask all the time, what do you need? If you have it, equipment, go up to the battalion chief, let us know, then doesn't mean that let us know. Let the department head know, they'll come to the city manager, blah, 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 quote, quote. But then when that happened years ago, no one listened. Only one person, Hepburn, looked into it, and then the fire department was chastised for what the city and the council, including yourself, felt was not going through the proper channels when they did. Now, everyone keeps bringing up the fire chief as if it's a new need. It is not. That is the job of the city manager, a task at which he is failing just spectacularly. Not only letting the city down, but our fire department as well. Yes, the pandemic has changed things, but we needed this well before the world changed. No excuses. Get it done unless you don't want it, which is the impression you're giving off. Everyone on the council needs to hold him accountable. It is his job and one of his duties. You've all paid for reports since August, but none of you brought anything to the table. Sure, the mayor brought emergency funds for an emergency. Is a perfect no, but it is the starting point for dialogue we had. Many of you just cried about paramedics are not a full station. Well, the fire department, you know what they want. Some of your concerns are valid, but rather than happily saying no, why don't you find a common ground and chisel your protections later? It's nice to see someone that just wanted something and they tried to go for it. How is it possible that after having the Messina report and all of the relevant information, you guys have not done anything, come to this with anything? There's a lot of talk about safety and a lot of talk about city pride. There's blame being thrown around, and I believe all you guys need to be focused on is productivity with your time, your effort, with the work we have entrusted you to do. I double dog dare you to do what you were elected to do.
You've reached your time. If you can finish up, Mr. Gibson, please. Thank you. Thank you. JR.
Still a couple more, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I have Andy Glaze on the line.
Good evening, Mr. Glaze. How are you this evening? And if you could please keep to the 3-minute time frame, we'd appreciate it.
Thank you. Mayor and City Council, my name is Andy Glaze, and I'm the Laverne Firefighters Association President. I speak tonight with a heavy heart as the fire department finds itself in a similar situation as it did several years ago. We have a hostile city council and city manager who are openly attacking Mayor Hepburn for coming up with a plan to make safety a priority and adequately fund and staff the fire department. We were surprised to see that City Manager Bob Rusty decided to involve himself in politics once again. He put together a fire department webpage for citizens to read. On that webpage, he added a letter that he wrote on May 20th, 2021, titled Official City of Laverne Statement on Fire Services Matter. First in his letter, he states that the Laverne City Council has prioritized repairing the relationship with the Laverne Firefighters Association. The fact that the Laverne Firefighters Association voted no confidence in the Laverne City Council 2 weeks ago clearly contradicts this statement. Next, Rusty stated that the mayor's statement regarding the former interim fire chief's support for this proposal was a mischaracterization of his opinion on the matter. We spoke to Chief Segura, and he told us he had sent Rusty a memo that would contradict Rusty's statement. The city did not release this document, and so the Laverne Firefighters Association did a Freedom of Information Act request to force the city to release the document. 14 days later, they finally released the memo titled Follow Up to Mayor Tim Hepburn's Station 3 Staffing Proposal. That day, we immediately released these documents to the citizens of Laverne to expose the truth. Here's the funny thing. Just today, before the council meeting, Bob Rusty released the same documents and attempted to twist their meaning to support his agenda. It's laughable. He had this document since April 20th and didn't release it until we made a FOIA request and put them online, exposing his behavior. The citizens deserve the truth. They deserve transparency. In his memo, Chief Segura clearly states, quote, staffing an additional fire engine will undoubtedly enhance the fire department's service levels and would provide additional suppression personnel, bringing the Laverne Fire Department closer to the minimum recommended standards according to NFPA 1710 for residential fires. Citizens of Laverne, does this sound like the mayor mischaracterized Chief Segura's opinion on the matter? Or do you think that enhancing the department's service level and providing better safety for the firefighters and citizens would be a positive change? The evidence is clear. The documents speak for themselves. Bob Rusty had 4 interim fire chiefs, multiple consultants, and multiple reports tell him that he must address the grave safety concerns of the fire department, and he has ignored them and continues to kick the can down the road. The decision the city manager is making, like with the city council, are jeopardizing the safety of the community and its firefighters. And we have no choice but to raise our voices again. We, the Laverne firefighters, vote no confidence in Bob Rusty as city manager of Laverne. Rest assured that we will continue to do our best to keep Laverne as safe as possible, even under these challenging conditions. All these documents have been posted on our social media for everyone to see, or feel free to email us or send us direct messages and we will send you copies. We have nothing to hide and will continue to expose the truth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Glaze.
Mayor, if I may interrupt this, I'd like our city attorney to read a memo that was sent by David Segura, prior chief interim fire department today to basically explain the reality of the situation. Mr. Kress.
I have that email from Chief Segura. It's directed to mayor and members of the council. I have been made aware of the social media activity that has centered around my position on the staffing deployment for the City of Laverne Fire Department. With that, I felt it was important to contact you and let you know that the reference of my position in the statement from the city dated May 20th was reviewed by me prior to its posting. I feel it correctly reflects my opinion and I approved its use. Staffing an additional fire engine at Fire Station 3 was not my proposal. This was proposed by Mayor Hepburn and the LVFA. In my opinion, the annexation of the LV Fire Department to the Los Angeles County Fire District is the best option for the City of Laverne. However, as referenced in the City of Laverne Fire Department Service Deployment Review report conducted by Messina and Associates, if the city chooses to continue the delivery of fire emergency services, it should not ignore the need to provide a sustainable solution to the staffing needs of the high-risk, low-frequency fire suppression events that require assistance from outside of the LFFD. The current automatic aid agreement between the LVFD and the fire district is outdated and appears to be inadequate to handle the current needs of the LVFD. Therefore, as referenced in the report, I believe that the Consolidated Fire Protection District of Los Angeles County offers a viable option for the fire service needs of the city of Laverne. And it's signed sincerely, David Segura.
Thank you, Mr. Kress. As you can see, he stands behind the comments that were made where the city posted that his remarks were misinterpreted. Thank you.
We have JR, came our phone. We have a couple attendees with hands up.
Mr. Mayor, I have Dave Garcia on the line.
Mr. Garcia, good evening. Can you please keep to the 3-minute time frame if you could, sir?
You guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My name is Dave Garcia, and I'm the Laverne Firefighters Association Treasurer Secretary. I'm speaking today to address the City Council's email responses to concerned citizens. We would like to encourage citizens to continue to send us copies of the City Council's response to their request to support Mayor Heffern's plan to reopen Fire Station 3 to paramedic fire engine. We would like to shine some truth on their email statement. We received an email from Robin Carter, a concerned citizen. Robin states, "We've always had plans to open Station 3 again with paramedic services. That's all that station was built for, not a fire engine. Sorry to say that is a blatant lie. The station was built to house a fire engine. It's called a fire station. Every aspect of that design and implementation of the fire station revolves around putting a fire engine there." In 2017, the Laverne Fire Department Strategic Plan 819 Strategy 1 states, "Free fire engine response model clearly states funding and staffing fire engine at Station 3. Next, she says, there are only a few fires in the city, 4.5 last year to be exact. That is another blatant lie. First, I'd love to know what half a fire is, because I generally don't know what half a fire is. Secondly, out of the 4.5 fires, what kind of fires are we talking about? Is it structure fires only? Does that include vehicle fires, wildland fires? Does that include small fires that we're able to put out before it spreads through the building? Does that include fire alarms? One of the fires last year was at Dow Hydraulics down in the south end of Laverne. It took over 100 firefighters to put it out. Why stop at fires? If Robin Carter thinks the reason for North Laverne doesn't need a fire engine is that we don't have enough fires, what about traffic accidents? How many people have we cut out from TCs on the north end? The ambulances don't carry jaws of life. What about gas leaks, carbon monoxide leaks, smoke investigation, hazardous call materials? Ambulance doesn't handle any of those calls. Robin Carter's misinformation campaign to justify her decision to put politics over safety is just another reason we had to vote in no confidence in her 2 weeks ago. Also, Rick Crosby has also sent emails to concerned citizens. We would like to address his comments. Stating in an email, right now, all we have is rhetoric from the mayor and the union. Station 3 has been open by now. The hiring of firemen has been an issue. First off, I'd like you to know, Mr. Crosby, that we're known as firefighters because we have women that work in our field. Then he states, according to the fire union, they have not helped in recruiting and even sabotage them. That is a blatant lie. I would like to see the evidence that we're sabotaging any recruitment effort.
Mr. Garcia, if we could finish up, I'd appreciate it.
I'm sorry, what was that?
If we could finish up, I'd appreciate it. We're past the 3 minutes, but thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have Joe Wetton on the line.
Hello, Ms. Wetton. How are you this evening?
I'm well, thank you very much. Mr.
We're gonna
Mayor,
hold, to the 3 minutes if we could, please.
when our mayor presents a motion to council members refuse to enter a second. Doing so doesn't mean agreement or approval, but it does allow discussion. Why are you against discussion? We, the public, are owed that consideration. I ask that you please give this some serious thought, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Wetton.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, you'll notice I'm bringing in some of the people that are raising their hands in between while we get people queued up on the phone.
Great, thank you. Appreciate it. Good evening, Ms. Jack-Mack. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you tonight?
Oh, good, thank you. We're gonna hold a 3-minute time frame if you don't mind, but you're welcome to speak, and thank you for serving Benita Unified.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Krista Chakmak, and I'm a board member for Benita Unified, but I'm not speaking tonight as a Benita Unified representative or a representative from the Board of Education, but as a private citizen. I haven't been as diligent about watching these meetings. Truthfully, I don't care for the Zoom format. And although Governor Newsom continued the Brown Act flexibility after June 15th, it states that it allows local agencies to continue holding meetings remotely as needed. But I do hope that you guys will consider meeting back in person. I think it's really important for this community. Also, at the last meeting, I caught several comments about the COVID-19 vaccine. And I'm not a doctor, just like all of you, but I am hoping that the vaccine hasn't been the only mention for combating COVID-19 during the last year. And that you've also been reminding our community that the following may be helpful as well: proper diet, whole foods, exercise, vitamin D, C, plenty of sleep, managing your anxiety, and getting any underlying comorbidities under control, and generally being proactive with your health, both physically and mentally. I'm absolutely not anti-vaccine. I'm anti-freedom of choice and anti-coercion, especially when it's coming from our elected government officials, TV personalities, musicians, and actors, because they don't know our bodies. They don't know our children. Please educate yourself on the best fit for you and your family, and contact your medical advisor for the right choice for you. I truly care about this community and our children, and we all need to be looking out for each other. It's hard addressing this and speaking out, especially because of my position in this community, but I did not run for this position to sacrifice my freedom of speech. I wish that more people would speak up, but I know the backlash that comes with voicing a different opinion, but I have to be able to look at myself in the mirror and look at my boys and let them know that I was never silent. Please be safe, be kind to each other, and I look forward to seeing many of you over the next few days for our high school graduations. Take care.
Thank you, Ms. Jack-Mack.
Mr. Mayor, I have Pam Berry on the line.
Good evening, Ms. Berry. If we could try to keep it to 3 minutes, we'd appreciate it. You're welcome to speak in anytime.
You're welcome. Thank you. Good evening. This is Pam Berry. At the last meeting, the mayor proposed additional staffing to reduce or to resolve the safety concerns of firefighters. Well, no, there's no resolving safety concerns. Those are ongoing. That's part of the dangerous job. But I support doing so, but the intent of the proposal was completely bypassed. No one came with their thinking cap on to seriously look into how do we fund this? If you don't want to do the reserve funding, how do we do this? That should have been up for discussion. I'd like to propose the scrapping of the teen center plan. I don't see why, I don't see many people that are demanding the teen center. I see a lot of people that are not happy about it. Most of the teens who've been surveyed are not excited about the idea. Whether the grant is approved or not, the project is going to take millions of dollars from the budget to complete the building, ongoing costs for staffing, security, maintenance. I've heard talk of a shuttle. All of those things are going to cost money, and there's not really a need for that because the schools have their own programs. they've got counselors on site, they've got activities on site. And in addition to the loss of park space for a building and a large parking lot, it seems like those funds would be better used. Cancel that funding for that and put that towards our fire department funding rather than a building and a parking lot in our park space. This is an urgent situation and it keeps getting put off longer and longer and longer. So I just wanted to make that suggestion and I hope that you will take it under consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Berry. Good evening, Mr. Bowen. If you could try to keep to the 3-minute time frame, you can begin anytime, sir.
I'll try to keep it very shorter than that. A few minutes ago, Andrew Glaze called in on a non-agenda item. After he spoke, Muir Davis, apparently in violation of the Brown Act, immediately jumped in front of you, Mr. Mayor, which is incredibly rude. But he's done it before, so I think the citizens have come to expect that type of behavior from Mr. Davis. And he immediately jumped in and had a prepared statement, of which he then handed off to our city attorney, who then read from another prepared statement by Chief Segura, I believe. So why isn't that? For 4 years, I've been coming to these meetings. Every time during public comment, we are admonished that if there's not an agenda item, you, the council, cannot react. You cannot discuss what was just brought up for a non-agenda item. Yet I just saw a shameful display by Muir Davis and our city attorney violating the Brown Act. So I asked the city attorney, is that close enough for you, sir, to violate the Brown Act? This is getting to be somewhat ridiculous. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Hello, Ms. Gonzalez. Please feel free to speak at any time. If we could keep a 3-minute time frame, I'd appreciate it. You may begin. Hello.
Hello, good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, and fellow citizens. My name is Tracy Gonzalez, and I'm a 15-year resident of Laverne, so a newbie. I had planned to speak specifically tonight about the state of affairs with the fire department. But the more I wrote about NFPA 17 standards, auto aid agreements, and the culture of the fire department in general, I realized that none of this really matters. The fire department issues and decisions to be made have just brought to light the fact that we no longer have a fully functioning government body that can work together to solve a problem. Over and over again, we watch as 4-1 votes go by, city leaders insult others, and you argue over the semantics of who said what rather than working to solve the why. Have you forgotten the why? The citizens of Laverne, me, my neighbors, my family and kids, your neighbors, your families. Like it or not, you're all public servants, and with that comes great responsibility, and we have entrusted you with that challenge. Item number 1 under long-term objectives for the city council under the budget currently being proposed describes what a council does: to work together as a city council team in meeting the challenges which face the city. Can you honestly say you're doing that? Number 3 is to further develop and strengthen working relationships with the city manager and department heads. Although the city attempted today to explain away recent offensive statements made by our city manager, I'm not sure how our mayor is supposed to develop and strengthen a relationship with someone who is characterizing him as being inaccurate or misleading, which is the definition of mischaracterization. Our budgets include memberships in California League of Cities, Southern California Association of Governments, and San Gabriel Valley of Council of Governments. I know you guys go to those meetings. City manager and council, you're very aware of these bodies. I see you on the rosters, but maybe we should really be getting something more out of these organizations. The recent conference on February 3rd had a presentation about promoting civility in times of heightened partisanship and polarization. It's a great presentation for leaders to see. It talks about collaboration and bringing ideas forward without fear of being dismissed or ridiculed, and to find common ground to identify and set aside personal biases. I'm a public servant myself and have been for over 32 years of my 51 years of living. And I'm always working to better myself and to be a good leader. I want to support my local leaders. I want to support you. Your failures and inabilities to solve problems become our problems as citizens. When I have more faith in my ability of my 13-year-old daughter to make sound, objective, and caring decisions than I do my local leaders, then we have a problem. Stop looking at people to blame. Look at yourselves, figure out how to function as a team, listen to what your citizens are telling you, and make this right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez.
Mr. Mayor, that's all the calls we have. We had one that we've made multiple attempts to call and unfortunately haven't been able to reach them, just been leaving voicemails.
Okay. We'll give it another 15 seconds and then we'll go to, we'll close and we'll go to council comments. Seeing no others, we will close public comment and move to council comments and conference meeting reports. Who would like to start?
Oh, I will.
Councilmember Carter, please.
Yes. The first thing I'd like to ask is to have something added to the agenda for next month. I would like to have us add for, so we could discuss it and possibly move forward, is to add to the agenda our council as a whole support for the recall of the DA Gascon. And we've had a couple of citizens over the past year. I had one this past week call me and ask me. And then also we've had others that have called in and asked us to do it. We all know the state of the county, and we're seeing it more and more. We need to take action. So I am asking that that's put on the agenda for next month. Okay, so that's one item. And then the other item, I already had it on here to talk about our PR, public relations officer we hired. We talked about it earlier in our budget session tonight. And we, as a council, all voted together to hire a PR because we wanted to open up more communication with the community. And we've done that. We, as a council, asked Bob to work with the DA, PR director, to get this information out. We, as a council, gave that direction. Bob is being blamed for what went out. We asked for the information that we had that is correct from our eyesights to go out there in what we know as facts. And there's so much wrong information out there. We wanted the truth to come out. And so that's where that comes from. And even comments tonight, it floors me. You know, one gentleman says, I'm foregoing county. I mean, if people pay attention to what's happening, they can see, you know, where we're going. I would love to see all of us cohesively working together. And that's what, you know, we need to do, all 5 of us together. And so that takes an effort from all of us. And I think that's where my discouragement is I don't feel that all 5 are part of it. So that's something, please make happen. And there's so many good things going on in this community. I would love to see the negativity stop. You know, talk to us about how we can improve our community, not tear us down. Where does that get us? And we're allowing an association to come on here, tear each one of us down, and then it encourages others to do that. That's wrong. We have other associations within our city that we don't see them doing this. They have issues they'd like taken care of, but they are doing this, and it's wrong. Many of them don't live here, and they say they care about the safety of this community. Then let's work together. We have all reached out to meet with the fire association. We did that time after time. Even after being insulted many years from them, I still want to make things happen. I met with them again, 2 months ago. We want this to, work. This is our city. I'm fighting hard to keep our own fire department with 1,600 other people right now. So I want this to work. Please, everybody, put on a new attitude of working together as a community. You say you moved here to Laverne for a reason. This is the reason. Let's come together. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Councilmember Carter. Who would like to be next? Councilmember Crosby.
Thank you. Just want to say thank you to heads of our department for building our budget. And I think we have a great budget going into next year, and appreciate it coming back for the final vote. But thanks the budget study session today, and a couple of our new heads of department for their first ever speaking about the budget. They did a great job, and I believe that our departments are working for the city, as is the council and you, Mr. Mayor, as well. And really appreciate everybody's looking forward and working together.
Thank you, Mr. Crosby. Councilmember Lau.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo, the thanks to the staff as always for doing a bunch of great work, especially with, not always all the resources that you would like. So I appreciate the department heads taking the time to go through their budgets with a fine tooth comb to see, what is possible and what can we do with what we have. So thank you for all that hard work, especially to the finance team. I appreciate that. I appreciate the folks who tuned in to the budget meeting. If you haven't had a chance to, if you weren't able to, because I understand that that's, still during folks' work days, it is recorded. So please feel free to go take a look and, be familiar with what is being budgeted within your city. So thank you for that. And then Cassie did have a meeting last week, which the Cultural Awareness and Social Inclusion Committee. And I just want to say thank you to the community members that have decided to come and attend. Mr. Bowen has been a regular attendee, which has been nice to hear some different perspectives from folks. And there have been other folks that have also trickled in at different times. So really appreciate that. We did have 3 student interns as well who helped to facilitate a lot of the foundational work that has started with this committee. So hats off to them and thank you to them for their partnership and for their help and awareness too. And I do want to also say thank you to the folks who obviously have tuned in, have voiced their opinions, and I appreciate everyone coming on here and sharing their thoughts, the people who email and everything else. But I will also say that I sincerely appreciate those who understand as well the difficulty in being in elected office. And this is a path that obviously we all chose to do. We all put in the time and the work to run for office. But I do appreciate those that have come and I think recognize the humanity and what it takes to do this job. So, I thank you for the prayers and the kind thoughts. We may not agree or see eye to eye on things, but I appreciate the fact that you are recognizing the humanity in all of us. And I think that's all that we can ask for. And I think that this council tries to work together as best as possible. We stumble, but I think, I do believe that these are good people that I serve with. And again, we don't always see eye to eye, but I have appreciated the outpouring of support for myself and for my family during difficult times. And I think that's a big deal. And I want to recognize that. So just because we don't agree doesn't mean that there should be vitriol, doesn't mean that there should be, angst, because we do need to build to better relationships to move forward. So, I do want to say, thank you to Kathy Kalusek for her kind words, for keeping us all in her prayers. And I want to say thank you to Krista too, for highlighting the fact that, I'm not here telling everybody you must go get the vaccine. Please go do your homework. I have had personal experience, obviously, with my dad that makes me very sensitive to it. And I want our community to be safe, but you've got to make decisions that are right for you and your family. So do the research, do what you need to do to feel comfortable. And, all we can do is ask that we all be kind to each other and try to recognize the humanity in one another as we move forward. So thank you all for your participation and your engagement. And again, while we may not always see eye to eye, know that I wish nothing but the best for you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lau. Councilmember Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to concur and support my council members, all of them, including the mayor, and our effort to move forward and converse with each other and have discussions and get engaged. As Council Member Lau was saying, the Cultural Awareness and Social Inclusion group met last Wednesday. We meet the first Wednesday of every month. Please join us. The Laverne San Dimas Education Foundation that I'm also part of, that meets the third Thursday of every month. Please join us for that. The Pomona Valley Transportation Authority meets tomorrow. Join us for that at 5 o'clock. There are lots of opportunities to be engaged, and please do. Join the Laverne Historical Society, get engaged in numerous things and start to understand some of the nuances that really make Laverne special. I recognize that we need to put out there our availability. So go to the website and go to the city council roster. On there, you'll see my mobile phone. Text me, let's meet. I'm interested in having a discussion that's beyond simply in city council meetings. So let's sit down and talk. Let's get engaged. Do your homework on every subject, including COVID. Let's understand this as we move forward together, because it's only going to be if we move forward together that Laverne remains Laverne. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Well, thank you all for your comments. As I reported, as Mr. Davis reported, some of the committees, I'm on the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments. I'm the first vice president. And I was talking to Mr. Walters regarding Craig Walters regarding AB 61 and SB 314, state bills and assembly bills that are really trying to help. So our electeds are trying to help our restaurants to be able to survive even, after the pandemic. So kudos to them and consistently work on trying to bolster our businesses, our restaurants, to keep them afloat and keep them alive. So we can hopefully go through this renaissance and have just a bang up of an economy. So as far as, council members getting along, sometimes we have some very diverse opinions, but over the many years, I've been on 6 years now, there's been many things that had a lot of diverse opinions where we came up with some really good solutions. And I think we can do that. Yes, the fire, I won't go into detail, but I think that we all need to have a discussion on that. I think it's very important. It is a very, very, very important factor of our community, our fire department. And also a lot of the good things going around here. We are reopening, hopefully by June 15th, we'll have some better news. We are going to have concerts in the park. We already have 2 engagements. We're just waiting for Mr. Newsom to open up and so we can get some dates. And we also have movies in the park over at Heritage Park, which is awesome. And that's coming. Just waiting for obviously the June 15th. I want to thank the 4th of July committee in their great wisdom to have us have a great 4th of July parade, which is awesome. I think everybody's really excited about that. And also the fireworks show. Even though Laverne residents, there are some restrictions. You can call the community services department, look on the website, but we're moving forward. We're opening up. And I think it's really important that we all stay together. We're all a family here in Laverne. And I do understand that some people with the COVID vaccinations, it's not for everybody. But I think as Councilmember Lau said, do your research. It may not be for your family, but you also have to protect those other people that may be in danger that cannot have the shots due to health reasons. But COVID is serious. And on that note, the Fairplex will be closing as of this Sunday. So if you wish to get shots, I suggest that it's open. There's no reservations. They'll go to more clinics in our local area that are giving out shots. But I know there's been a lag on the people that do want to get the shots. Please, if you've had a first shot, get your second shot. And if you haven't had a shot and you're just wavering, but you feel that you don't have the time, it's open. There's no lines waiting over at the Fairplex, but they're only going to be open for a short time for this Sunday. So please protect yourself, protect your family members, and everybody just have a fantastic weekend. And we look forward to the reopening here soon for our next meeting. Hopefully we'll have it in the open council chambers. Mr. Russi, we have a need for a closed session tonight. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. We have a need under Government Code Section 54957.6. We're meeting with a labor negotiator, and we will be meeting to discuss the Police Association, Fire Association, middle management, and unrepresented employees.
Thank you. We will adjourn until actually tomorrow. We're going to recess into closed session. We will not be coming out, but we will be adjourning to Tuesday, June 8th at 2 p.m. to public employee appointment for the position of the fire chief. Will be interviewing the fire chief. Our next regular scheduled meeting is scheduled for Monday, June 21st at 6:30 p.m. We will now recess into closed session.